Are you ready to discover how this story can redefine your internal struggles and reveal a greater purpose than you ever imagined? The story of Jacob is not just a biblical narrative. It's a powerful lesson on human struggle, redemption, and spiritual transformation. Filled with family conflicts, questionable decisions, and divine encounters, this saga shows us how our internal battles reflect the clash between our humanity and spirituality, between what we desire and what God has planned for us. Join me as we explore how Jacob's life can inspire a radical change in your relationship with divine purpose. Jacob is not just a historical figure. His life embodies the universal human quest for meaning, purpose, and redemption. Through him, God reveals how even the most difficult circumstances can become opportunities for transformation and spiritual growth. From his birth to his wrestling with the angel, Jacob becomes a living testimony of how God's power can change our identity and destiny. Today, I invite you to explore this extraordinary story with a deep and thoughtful perspective. Let's dive into the key moments of his life, not just to understand the narrative, but to discover how his experiences mirror our own struggles, challenges, and victories. In this story, we will find answers to fundamental questions that we all face at some point in life. Who am I really? What is my purpose in this world? How can I overcome my failures and be transformed by God? If this content inspires and resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, activate the notification bell, and share this message with others. Together, we can uncover the eternal truths the Bible offers and apply them to our daily lives. Chapter 1. An unusual beginning, two nations in conflict. Jacob's story begins even before his birth, in his mother, Rebekah's womb. In Genesis 25:22-23, Rebekah experienced something unusual. The two babies in her womb were struggling with each other. This prenatal conflict was no coincidence. It symbolized the destiny of two entire nations, Israel and Edom. God revealed to Rebekah, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." Genesis 25:23. This prophecy was a bold declaration of God's sovereign plan. In a culture that prioritized the firstborn, God broke the norms and chose the younger, Jacob, to fulfill his divine purpose. This choice foreshadows a recurring theme in the Bible. God does not choose based on appearances or human standards, but according to his eternal will and purpose. When the twins were born, Esau came out first, covered in reddish hair, while Jacob followed, grasping his heel. This small detail was deeply symbolic. The name Jacob means supplanter, or one who grabs the heel, a foreshadowing of the cunning and determination that would mark his youth. Reflection. How often do we feel like our lives are predestined by the circumstances of our birth, family, or environment? Perhaps we were born into unfavorable situations or face expectations that seem limiting. Jacob's story teaches us that God has a specific plan for each of us. Even when the world underestimates us, God sees purpose and potential in us. Practical application. If you've ever felt limited by your background or others' expectations, remember that God does not choose based on human standards. He sees your heart and your willingness to follow his plan. Chapter 2. Family Dynamics, Favoritism and its Consequences. Jacob's relationship with his family mirrors the tensions that occur in many modern families. Isaac, his father, favored Esau, while Rebekah favored Jacob. This favoritism sowed seeds of division, resentment, and competition between the brothers. Esau, a strong outdoorsman and skilled hunter, embodied everything Isaac admired: self-reliance, physical strength, and a connection to the land. Jacob, on the other hand, was more reserved and stayed closer to home, earning his mother's special affection. This conflict was not merely personal, it represented two ways of life and two spiritual visions. Esau, impulsive and focused on the immediate, embodied a worldly perspective. Jacob, though imperfect, desired something deeper. the spiritual birthright and divine blessing. Modern parallels. In our own families, churches, or workplaces, favoritism and comparisons often cause divisions and emotional wounds. Through this story, we learn the importance of treating others with fairness and love, recognizing that everyone has a valuable role in God's plan. Personal reflection. Have I unfairly favored certain people in my life? How can I foster healthier, more harmonious relationships with those around me? Chapter 3. The deception for the birthright. Cunning or spiritual ambition. One of the most famous and controversial moments in Jacob's life is when he obtained Esau's birthright in exchange for a bowl of stew. Genesis 25 to 29:34 recounts how Esau returned from the field exhausted and, in an impulsive act, gave up his birthright to Jacob. This episode is often viewed as deceitful, but it also reveals something deeper. Jacob understood the spiritual value of the birthright. It was not just about material wealth, but about the connection to God's covenant and the promises given to Abraham and Isaac. Esau, on the other hand, despised this gift by prioritizing his temporary hunger. Reflection. How often do we sacrifice our spiritual blessings for temporary pleasures? In a world that tempts us to seek instant gratification, the story of Jacob and Esau challenges us to re-evaluate our priorities and value what is eternal over what is fleeting. Application. Reflect on areas of your life where you might be trading long-term blessings for short-term satisfaction. Is it in your relationships, your time with God, or your spiritual goals? Chapter 4. The stolen blessing. A plan, full of deception and consequences. The climax of the family conflict arises when Jacob, prompted by Rebekah, deceives his father Isaac to receive the blessing meant for Esau. In Genesis 27, Jacob disguises himself to imitate Esau's appearance and scent, deceiving his elderly, blind father. Although Jacob obtained the blessing, it came at a high cost. This act separated him from his family, provoked Esau's fury, and forced him to flee, initiating years of loneliness and trials. Spiritual lesson. Taking shortcuts in life can lead to painful consequences. However, even in our greatest mistakes, God can redeem us and use them for His glory. Due to space constraints, I will expand further chapters in the next response. Up next, the dream at Bethel, an encounter with God amid exile. If this exploration is inspiring you, share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more transformative content. Let's continue discovering how Jacob's life mirrors our own spiritual journey. Chapter 5. The Dream at Bethel. An encounter with God on the path of escape. While Jacob fled to Haran to escape Esau's wrath, he experienced a transformative encounter with God. In Genesis 28 to 10-22, we find one of the most significant episodes of his life, the dream at Bethel. Exhausted and alone, Jacob used a stone as a pillow and had an extraordinary vision during the night. In his dream, he saw a ladder connecting heaven and earth, with angels ascending and descending, and God himself standing above it, speaking to him. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Genesis 28:15. This scene is deeply revealing. The ladder symbolizes the link between the divine and the human, a reminder that God is not distant, but actively involved with his creation. Despite his mistakes and deceptions, Jacob discovered that God had not abandoned him. In his loneliness and fear, the Lord appeared with a promise of protection, purpose, and return. The significance of Bethel. Bethel, meaning house of God, became a spiritual milestone for Jacob. There, he made a solemn vow, promising that if God cared for him and brought him back in peace, he would be his God, and Bethel would be a sacred place. Reflection. How often have we felt like we are on a path of escape? Perhaps we run from our mistakes, family conflicts, or difficult decisions. Yet, it is in those moments of greatest vulnerability that God reaches out to us with his love and promises. The vision of the ladder teaches us that God is always accessible, even when everything seems lost. Practical application. Make your time with God a daily Bethel, a place where you can meet Him through prayer and meditation. Amid your challenges, seek His voice and trust in His promises. Chapter 6. Years in Haran, Lessons of Humility, Perseverance, and Redemption. After his experience at Bethel, Jacob arrived in Haran, where he lived with his uncle Laban. The next 20 years of his life were marked by hard work, love, deceit, and personal growth. This period became a time of trial and character formation for Jacob. The love for Rachel and Laban's deception. Jacob, smitten with Rachel, agreed to work 7 years to marry her. However, Laban, taking advantage of Jacob's naivete, deceived him by giving him Leah, the elder sister, instead. Feeling betrayed, Jacob had to work another 7 years to marry Rachel. So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. Genesis 29:20. This deception mirrored Jacob's earlier actions, allowing him to experience firsthand the pain of manipulation. Despite the setback, Jacob persevered, demonstrating his love for Rachel and determination. Prosperity through hard work. During his time in Haran, Jacob worked tirelessly, tending Laban's flocks. Although Laban repeatedly changed their agreements, God prospered Jacob. Genesis 30:43 describes how Jacob became exceedingly wealthy, acquiring large flocks, servants, and possessions. Lessons in humility and dependence on God. These years in Haran were formative for Jacob. He learned patience, the value of honest labor, and the necessity of relying wholly on God. No longer the cunning young man who relied solely on his wits, Jacob began to recognize God's hand in every blessing. Reflection. How many times have we faced trials that seem unfair or unending? Perhaps we feel trapped in cycles of hard work or mistreatment. Jacob's story reminds us that God uses these challenging seasons to refine our character and prepare us for greater blessings. Application: reflect on the trials you are currently facing. How might God be using them to shape your character and strengthen your faith? Chapter 7. Wrestling at the Jabbok, a profound spiritual transformation. The climax of Jacob's spiritual transformation occurs at the Jabbok River, where he has a physical and spiritual encounter with God. After years away from home, Jacob decided to return to Canaan, but he feared meeting Esau, who might still seek revenge. The night before meeting Esau, Jacob stayed behind alone, and during this time, he wrestled with a mysterious man throughout the night. This man, as later revealed, was a manifestation of God himself. During the struggle, Jacob displayed unyielding determination, refusing to let go until he received a blessing. "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Genesis 32:26. Seeing Jacob's persistence, God blessed him and changed his name. "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome." Genesis 32:28. This name change was deeply significant. Israel means he who struggles with God, symbolizing Jacob's transformation. He was no longer a deceiver. He had become a man of faith, marked by his dependence on and relationship with God. Spiritual lesson. Our most intense struggles, both internal and external, can precede profound blessings. God uses these moments to transform our identity, teaching us to rely on His strength rather than our own. Reflection. What struggles are you facing right now? Are you willing to hold on to God until you receive His blessing? Practical application. When facing difficult trials, don't flee or become discouraged. Use those moments to draw closer to God and seek His guidance with perseverance. Final reflections and applications. Jacob's life is a testament to the transformative power of God. Through his mistakes, conflicts, and struggles, Jacob was shaped and redeemed by divine grace. His story teaches us that our failures do not define us. God sees our potential and transforms us when we seek Him. Perseverance in faith brings blessings. Like Jacob, we must hold on to God amid our struggles. God's purpose prevails. Even when our paths seem wayward, His will is fulfilled in our lives. Questions for reflection. What spiritual struggles are you currently facing? How can you trust God more during this season? Is there an area of your life that needs divine transformation as Jacob experienced? Thank you for joining me on this journey through Jacob's life. If this content has blessed you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, share this message with others, and turn on notifications. Together, let's continue learning and growing in the eternal truth that God's Word has to offer. May God bless you abundantly.